Hello everyone, my name is Jenny Johns. I'm a clinical psychologist from the Northumbria Cancer Health Psychology Service, and my colleague joining me is...
Yeah, I'm Christie. I'm also a clinical psychologist working at Northumbria Healthcare as well with Jenny in Oncology.
Okay, we're making this video for the Live Well with Cancer charity that supports people with their cancer journey. Particularly we're going to talk about the changes that you can go through in terms of what's important to you when you're coping with cancer and living beyond it. So our presentation is called What Matters Now. I'm going to introduce you to something called acceptance and commitment therapy. It gets abbreviated to ACT. So this is an approach that we often use when we're supporting patients to help them think about living a life that is meaningful and in line with the things that are important to them. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about the approach, and then we're going to take you through the process that we go through with some of the patients we work with. First of all, thinking about trying to put into words what matters, so identifying our values. Then we're going to talk to you about how you turn that awareness into action, so how you can move towards those things that are valuable in your life. And then we're going to talk about some of the obstacles that come up when people know what they want to be doing, they know where they want to put their energy, but some of the obstacles that come up, whether that's difficult thoughts and worries that come up or difficult feelings that come up. So acceptance and commitment therapy has two really helpful sets of skills we're going to introduce you to. First of all, they talk about the idea of values-based action. So that's first of all deciding what is it that's important to me now, and then deciding, well, how can I bring those values into the actions I take each day? And then the second set of skills that we're going to talk about are dealing with obstacles. So once I know what I want to be doing, what's getting in the way, and how can I manage that? So what are values? So values are the things that are important to you. They're the way you want to live your life, what you want to stand for, what you believe in. They're the things that give us direction and meaning in our life. They're the things that are like our compass direction. They're the things that we want to invest in. Those values might be very similar throughout your life, or sometimes you can go through some significant life events and those values might change, and some things that were once important become less important. Some things that you start to recognise that you want to put more energy into. And it's our experience in working with patients who go through cancer that it's very common they want to stop and take stock and think about what matters now. What we're going to do now is show you a conversation about me talking to a lady about her values and trying to put into words what matters to her, the first stage of using these ACT ideas. So Jo, nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you again.
I know last time that we met we talked about the acceptance and commitment therapy approach, ACT. So I thought today we could talk a little bit about some of the things that matter to you.
Okay.
So talk to me about that. What's important at this point in your life?
Well, I feel as though, you know, all those things that I loved to do have just changed so much because of where my cancer was.
Okay.
So I love kind of arty things, crafty things. I'm part of an art group, or I was. I like to crochet and make kind of blankets for the grandkids, and yeah, just lots of things that involve being able to see well, and my eyesight has just changed so much now.
And I think that's often the case, you know, when we're talking to people, that the things they were doing before and brought them joy and were valuable, for some reason it's hard to do things in the same way. So I guess our conversation is about trying to figure out what really matters, and are there ways of us being flexible and thinking, are there other ways of living in line with those values?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I guess you used the word creativity there, didn't you? And it sounds like that happens in different ways.
Yeah.
Anything else about those activities that you enjoyed?
I guess being with my friends, you know, just kind of being part of that art group. I go to church, and that's kind of, you know, there's people there and there's groups, and I'm really struggling to engage with those things. again, just because I think they'll be so different, and I think what's the point?
Okay.
Really.
Yeah, and I think the ACT approach helps us when we've got worries about doing something, or when we notice thoughts like what's the point, that kind of get in the way of us doing some of the things that maybe might start to light life back up again.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm hearing something about creativity in lots of different forms that's been valuable, but something about connection and feeling part of a kind of group of friends or a community.
Friends, and I guess also, you know, kind of some of those crafty things, the sewing and the crocheting, blankets and things for the family, and there's something about connecting to them through that as well, which I find really really important. I love it, or I loved it. It's really hard at the moment, but and
I can hear that sense of loss, and I think for lots of people when we're having these conversations, they can sometimes be quite difficult because it's reminding you of things that you feel that you've lost. But that's our job together, to figure out these are the things that matter. How can we bring those back into your life in a way that's doable and valuable?
That would be fab.
Anything else, if you think about kind of the sort of person you are and what matters to you, so the creativity, connection, anything else that's important?
I think I've always felt like I could manage things, and I've achieved quite a lot, and been quite independent in my life. And again, I feel like that's changed a lot lately. I am much less able to do things. And that's really hard. I've always kind of, you know, I've looked after myself, and I've kind of, you know, I like getting my makeup on and getting my nice clothes on, and sort of putting my best face forward for the world. And again, because of where my cancer is, I can't wear a lot of makeup at the moment. I can't put mascara on, and that's really hard. So that sense of, I guess, who I am, you know, able to do things, and that makes sense. How the world sees me, I guess.
Yeah. And am I right in hearing almost two strands of that? There's something about independence. Is that a value that matters?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But also something about you used that lovely phrase, kind of something about putting my best face to the world.
My best face forward.
Yes, best face forward. That was it. So that sounds like, again, another strand of what's important.
Yeah, really important.
So just summing that up then, so I'm hearing maybe 4 strands of things that matter. So something about creativity, something about connection, something about independence and being able to do things independently, and something about kind of being able to put your, I keep finding
my best face forward. Yeah.
Okay, smash it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that sums it up nicely,
Great. So in that conversation with Joan, we talked about some of the things that were important to her, and sometimes that's how we discover our values in conversations with other people. But if you're interested in taking this forward for yourself, you might want to sit and talk to somebody who knows you well in the way that I did with Joan, or there are some really nice resources around. So this questionnaire that we've signposted you to is from a book called The Happiness Trap, which again people might want to have a look at, and takes you through some ideas about the areas which might be important for you. Okay, so we're going to go back to talking to Joan about her values, but this time we're going to think about how we can take those values forward. We're going to use something called the bullseye map to help us with this. Take you through now is we've talked about what those values are. We've been able to put those into words.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to draw out for us is what we call a bullseye.
Okay.
So if I draw this here, so our bullseye's got kind of 4 areas, and we're going to pick the values that we talked about and put them in each of those areas. So we've got creativity, we've got connection with others, we've got independence, and we've got putting my best face forward.
Yeah. You've got it.
Got there eventually.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. So what we're going to do next is, if you imagine that's the centre of our dartboard, that's our bullseye. With each of those values, I'm going to ask you where you are with those now.
Okay.
So if you feel like actually that value is really central to how I operate in my day-to-day life, we'd put it somewhere near the middle. If it feels like it's drifted away from where you'd want it to be and it's further away from how you live at the moment, we'd put it sort of further towards the edge of the circle. And for some of them, if you've really lost connection with that value, it might even be, off the dartboard, if you like.
Okay.
So if we start with creativity, if I kind of move that way, if you say when.
I mean, it's far out. I'm not doing anything creative. Yeah, maybe about there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Connection to others.
Yeah, again, it's going to be quite far out.
Keep going.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. It's probably on the edge, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm seeing people, I'm seeing the family, but I don't feel connected. I don't feel as kind of in touch with things as I did. Not as involved. Maybe that's a good way of putting it.
So that's not just about physically seeing people, then it's about kind of how connected you feel when you're with them as well. Okay. Independence. Where are we with that?
Gosh, that's far out again. I can't really do that much. Maybe about there. Maybe about there.
And then putting my best face forward. Where are we with that?
Keep going. Keep going a little bit more. Maybe about there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well done. So now we've done that, what does that feel like to look at that?
Sad, actually. It's just not. If I'm trying to aim for the middle, I'm nowhere near the middle on any of those things. So it's quite sad seeing it drawn like that.
Yeah. And I think having these conversations often does stir up some really strong emotion.
Yeah.
But that's kind of why you're here, isn't it? You've got a sense that things aren't as I would want them to be, and that's where we're starting from. And I guess what I like about this approach is it's very based on action and trying to do things differently. But what we don't want is to kind of overwhelm ourselves with trying to change everything all at once. So my next question would be, if we were going to just work with one of those values to begin with to get started, where would you most like to put your energy? What's most important?
I think if I could work on the creativity bit, because I've done that with people, my art group, my crocheting helps me feel like I'm doing something for the family, the little ones.
Okay.
That would kind of help with the connection bit, and I guess it would help with that feeling of being able to do things and being a bit more independent and able and achieve some of those things that I have in the past. So maybe if I start with the creativity one, it might hit into some of the others as well.
I think that's often the way with this kind of approach, that those things have obviously got some links to them. So that feels like the most sensible place for us to start.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So then my next question is, if we're starting really small, we're just thinking about one thing that you could do differently between now and the next time we meet, that if I asked us to do this again, would move that cross a little bit nearer to the middle.
Okay.
So really trying to pick something that's small and doable.
Okay. Feels like a big question, really. Maybe I've got in my house one of the bedrooms is like a little art room.
Okay, lovely.
And it's got all my stuff in there, and I used to spend loads of time in there kind of painting, and I haven't been in there for ages, and it's just a mess. I mean, the idea of doing anything feels too much, but I could go in.
Okay.
And I could maybe have a bit of a sort out. There'll be stuff in there that I need to throw away, so I could just go in and be there and have a tidy up, maybe.
Okay. You're not looking convincing. It's great because what you've done is you've picked something, you've not said, all right, I'm going to go and do a massive art project.
No,
you just said,
gosh, no.
That's where I could start. But you still looked a little bit unsure. So if I asked you on a scale of 0 to 10, if 10's as sort of anxious and uncomfortable as you could feel, and 0's feeling kind of calm, how difficult does that feel?
Maybe maybe a 6 or a 7.
A 6 or a 7?
Maybe a 6.
A 6. Because what we'd usually say to people is pick something that's around a 5 or a 6.
Okay.
So it sounds like that's slightly higher than that.
Yeah.
So is it a 6 or a 7 to go in and tidy round?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
But going in and just being there, maybe that's a 5 or a 6. Maybe that's a 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I guess if I'm looking at all of that stuff, again, that reminds me of what I did.
Okay.
What I was able to do. So maybe just going in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that feels about a 5.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there's still some difficult emotion
Yeah,
or thoughts that might pop up. And I guess what we'll do next is have a little think about those difficult thoughts and feelings that show up when you imagine doing that, how we might deal with that.
Okay.
Lovely. Okay. Once you've decided which of the values you want to work on, we talk about the idea of SMART goals. So thinking about things that are very specific, measurable and meaningful. Achievable is really important. So you saw me asking Joan about, on a scale of 0 to 10, how achievable does that feel, or how difficult are the emotions that come up. So picking something that's around a 5 or a 6, something that's realistic and something that's time framed. So I was asking her, between now and the next time I see you, what are you going to try and do? And really starting with something manageable that you could do today, something that's possible. So the ACT approach helps us as well, because it talks about dealing with obstacles. So the first sort of obstacles that get in the way can be unhelpful thoughts. So you heard Joan talk about the thought that might pop into her mind, oh, what's the point? I think quite often when people are thinking about starting something new or picking something up, those sort of thoughts can be around. So ACT has a concept called diffusion, which we find really helpful when it comes to difficult thoughts. So with diffusion, we're not trying to be positive, we're not trying to argue with those thoughts when they pop up. What we're trying to do is just notice that those thoughts have happened and allow them to be there, not get caught up with them, not act based on what they're saying, just allowing them to be there. So these next couple of videos help you to understand that idea of diffusion. The second set of strategies for dealing with obstacles to taking steps towards your values are about dealing with difficult emotions. So when we were talking to Joan, you'll have noticed she was feeling a bit anxious and uncomfortable about taking the steps that she wanted to. So we're going to do an exercise now that helps people when there's a difficult emotion around linked to acting in line with their values. So Joan, you talked to me about the next steps that you'd like to take, and I love the idea of you getting back into your art room, but I could see on your face as we talked about it, there was some discomfort came up when you thought about doing that. So the exercise we're going to do now is hopefully to help you with that. So we're not going to try and get rid of that feeling. It's something that you're going to take with you into that room. But what we're going to do is use one of the ACT techniques to try and help you with that. So as we do, I'm going to ask you some strange questions. Just go with whatever comes up. You can't get this wrong.
All right.
So
I'm a bit nervous about this.
So what I'd like you to do is, and you can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed, whatever helps you to focus. But can you bring to mind an image of yourself walking towards the door of that room?
Yes.
Okay. So as you do that, tell me what you notice in your body.
It feels kind of heavy over, kind of on my back almost, and my shoulders, sort of a tense, heavy feeling almost.
Okay. And if you were going to give that feeling, that emotion that you're experiencing a name, what would you call it?
I guess it's anxiety.
Okay. So what goes with that anxiety feeling is a kind of heavy, tense feeling across your shoulders.
Yeah.
On a scale of 0 to 10, how strong is that?
Maybe a 7.
Okay. And so you said the sensations across your shoulders, and here come the weird questions.
Okay.
If that sensation had a shape, what shape would it be?
Ooh. Maybe just like a splat kind of shape, like a sludgy blob.
Okay, so kind of a splat blob shape across your shoulders.
Yeah.
Next strange question.
Okay.
If it had a colour, what colour would it be?
Oh, it wouldn't be a nice colour. It would be like I said sludged in, like a sludgy, greeny, browny sort of colour.
Okay, smash it. So we've got like a sludgy, greeny, browny splat of anxiety across your shoulders. Next weird question.
Okay.
Does it stay still, or does it move or change at all?
It's almost as if it's like clinging on.
Okay.
It's not necessarily moving. I've got this image of like there's like a cough syrup advert on the telly, and it's like this little green gremlin thing that sits on someone's chest. It feels like that sort of thing.
Okay.
But on my back, so it's like kind of just holding on.
Okay.
That is weird.
Brilliant description. Isn't it weird that your brain gives you answers to these weird questions?
Yes.
So we've got this like sludgy, greeny, browny, creaturey thing kind of hanging, splat kind of hanging on to your shoulders, and that kind of tension and kind of heaviness. Okay. So we're not going to try and get rid of that at all.
Okay.
But we're just noticing it.
Yeah.
We're noticing that it's there. So again, you can do this with your eyes open and your eyes closed.
Yeah.
But noticing that sensation as it is across your shoulders, what I'd like you to do is just bring your attention to your breathing.
Okay.
And as you're breathing in and breathing out, imagine sending your breath around that shape. So you're not trying to get rid of it, you're not trying to change it in any way, but just breathing nice and steady. As you breathe in, sending the breath around that shape and letting it flow out. So it's flowing all around the edges of that shape. And you're just making space for it. You're allowing it to sit there. So with each in-breath, the breath just flows around that shape and then gently makes its way out. Just breathing in and breathing out. And just allowing that shape to just sit there. Becoming familiar with it. Okay. And then just bringing your attention back to the rest of the room. So it's very brief practice, but what did you notice with that, Joan?
It sort of started to feel a bit lighter, and again, weirdly, had this sort of picture of, you know, like pirates with a little parrot on their shoulder.
Okay.
It was almost changing into that sort of thing, that it was like my little companion.
Okay.
But that it wasn't as sinister and grabby.
Lovely. That's really lovely.
Yeah.
And you know, I said to you that with this exercise, we're not trying to make anything happen.
Yeah.
But it's not unusual that something does. And what was really interesting in what you said was, it didn't feel so grabby. It didn't feel so scary.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we know about these techniques is that sometimes it's us trying to push away a difficult emotion, or struggling with it, us wrestling with it, that actually creates more of the suffering. That if we can almost befriend our difficult emotions, which it sounds like, you know, your little chap was kind of sitting on your shoulder.
It was getting that way. I wouldn't say we were friends, but he was there rather than, grabbing as much.
Yeah. So we're not trying to get rid of the anxiety, but we're trying to be able to do the things that matter to us, move towards our values, even if a difficult thought or feeling shows up.
Yeah.
So I guess what's lovely about that is, if we link back to what you're trying to do, which is to be able to be in that room and start to spend time there, you're going to take him with you, aren't you? He's coming along for the ride.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. So going back to that image now then, so if you take yourself back into that image and imagine yourself being at the door now, what do you notice?
It doesn't feel as scary.
Okay.
It feels a bit more manageable.
Okay. And if I took you back to those numbers again, it was a sort of a 67 before. What does it feel like now?
Maybe a 4 or 5, maybe. But
Okay.
I would say significantly lower.
Okay. More doable.
More doable, yeah.
Okay. Because I guess that practice we did very, very briefly, and it might be something that you want to have another go at.
Yeah.
And my guess is that kind of sludgy anxiety feeling doesn't just show up when you think about going into that room. It probably shows up in other places as well. So that would be my invitation, is to have a little play around with that in practice and see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you, I will.
Okay. So, in summary, if you're thinking about using these ideas yourself, what we'd suggest is, when you're thinking about identifying your values, don't give yourself too much to do. Maybe start with 3 or 4 key values. And certainly when you're using the bullseye, just picking one to get started with. Maybe draw out the bullseye for yourself and think about, where am I with these values right now? And then using these techniques that we've talked about, once you've spotted where do I want to move towards, thinking what are those obstacles, what are the thoughts that show up that might get in the way, and trying to use some of those diffusion techniques. Or if the obstacles are to do with difficult emotions, having a little practice at the exercise that you saw. So we'd like to wish you good luck with all of that, and all the best.